We all have moments of suffering, but we can either be broken by those moments or we can be broken open by them. Some people are broken. They build a fragile shell, they curl in, they are afraid to be touched. The part of themselves that is hurting, they just want to shell it over. And those people usually lash out in anger and resentment. There's a saying that pain that is not transformed gets transmitted. But other people, they get broken open. They get more and more vulnerable, more open. They live their life at a deeper level. The theologian Paul Tillich said that what moments of suffering does is they interrupt your life and they remind you you're not the person you thought you were. They carve through what you thought was the floor of the basement of your soul and reveal a cavity below, and then they carve through that and reveal a cavity below. You just see deeper into yourself than you ever knew existed. And you realize when you see into those depths that only spiritual and emotional food will fill those voids. And so they begin to live life at a deeper level. I had a friend who said that when her first daughter was born, she realized she loved her more than evolution required. And I've always liked that because it speaks to that deeper level. Some things we do to pass along our genes, but some things down in the deeps of ourselves, there is just some enchanted level, which is where we can find our illimitable ability to care for one another. One of my favorite expressions comes from psychology. It says that all of life is a series of daring adventures from a secure base. You know who you are, you've planted themselves down, you therefore have the security to go abroad. And a lot of the weavers we admire, they love being the only person like them in the room. There's a woman named Sarah Heminger, who's a favorite of ours, grew up in Indiana. Her dad was in the church and found out that their pastor was embezzling money. So their dad reported it. And instead of getting rid of the pastor, they shunned Sarah's family. So she grew up with, for 8 years, not being invited to parties, sometimes at Christmas parties for her own grandmother's house. She and her brother had to sit in a different room because they were shunned. She knew what true isolation was. Then she went to Johns Hopkins. She was riding a bus in Baltimore and saw some kids outside of school. And she saw those kids, young African-American kids in Baltimore, and said, I know exactly what they're feeling. I recognize that isolation. And so she put herself in the context of spending her life now with those kids, people completely unlike herself, a Midwestern white girl. But they get a thrill out of being with people completely unlike themselves and making that human bond and being transparent. And this is the third trait of people who know others deeply. They're emotionally transparent. One of our society's great problems flow from people not feeling seen and known. Blacks feeling that their daily experience is not understood by whites, rural people not feeling seen by coastal elites, depressed young people not feeling understood by anyone, people across the political divides looking at angry incomprehension at one another, employees feeling invisible at work, husbands and wives in broken marriages realizing that the person who should know them best actually has no clue. And so this, to me, is the core democratic trait that we all have to get a little better at. And that is the trait of seeing each other deeply and being deeply seen. It's a question of epistemology, of understanding each other. John Ruskin, one of my heroes, said, "The greatest thing a human soul ever does in this world is to see something and tell what it saw in a plain way. Hundreds can talk for one who can think, but thousands can think for one who can see." And when you think about it, there's one skill at the center of any healthy family, company, classroom, community, university, or nation: the ability to see someone else deeply, to know another person profoundly, to make them feel heard and understood. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking, what is this skill? How do you get good at it? The first thing we think about, it's not a detached intellectual skill, it's an emotional form of knowing. Our master here is St. Augustine, who said that knowledge is a form of love. Love is a focus of attention. Love is a motivational state to learn more about another. Love is a drive to move in harmony with another. We separate the heart and the head, but Augustine never did that. And this meritocracy does give us a lot of achievement. People are driving here from Salt Lake City, all these great companies that are lining the highway. and they're to be saluted and honored. But there are things in the meritocracy that if you take it unadulterated with no other moral system are actually lies. The first lie of the meritocracy is that career success makes you happy. And I'm the poster child for that's not true. The second lie of the meritocracy is the lie of self-sufficiency, that you can make yourself happy, that if you can win one more victory, lose 15 pounds, get really good at yoga, you'll be happy. But when you ask people at the end of their lives what made them happy, it was not self-sufficiency, it was moments of utter dependency when they were utterly dependent on somebody else and somebody else was utterly dependent on them. The third lie is that life is an individual journey. We buy kids this book called Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. And in that book, there's an individual kid graduating from college, and his life is a series of experiences on the way up to success. He has no friends, he has no relationships, he has no connections, because we think of life as an individual journey. If you give that book to immigrant groups, they hate that book, because that's not life as they experience it. The fourth lie is that you can create your own truth. You have to come up with your own worldview. That truth is not something outside of you, locked into the natural order of the universe. It's something you create on your own. And if you tell people that you have to create their own truth, very often they will not be able to do that. And then there are all the lies of the meritocracy and the culture of the meritocracy. That you are what you accomplish, that you earn dignity and respect by attaching yourself to prestigious brands. The emotional of the meritocracy is conditional love. You earn your way to be loved. The anthropology of the meritocracy is that you're not a soul to be saved. You're a set of skills to be maximized. And the big lie at the head of the meritocracy, which is the really corrosive thing, is that people who've achieved more are worth more than other people.